14th Clark, depending on who's on. Also, a word of advice, if you're in one of the middle rows, please don't stand up because we have a camera in the back that will get into the frame. So please be mindful of that and don't stand up like a lunatic. I'm going to turn it over to Adam.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming out today. We'll get started in about a minute here before we announce our two lovely debaters. Just some ground rules, don't get rowdy. I'm sure many of you probably already came to debate once. We're just kind of here to have fun. Like, we want to fight accuracy, but we want to do it in the most respectful way possible. So if someone up here says something you disagree with, we will have a chance for you to come up and give a speech, possibly, but please just kind of keep everything on the low and don't be rude to any of the debaters. I'm sure you learned to know. Other than that, here are some of the ground rules for the actual debate itself. So before we start on any of the topics, and by the way, our topics will start with NASA versus privatization, then we'll go on to military funding, and then we'll go on to the Affordable Care Act. But before we start any of those topics, we'll have our debaters come out, Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Clark, and they will give a little speech about their political philosophies. Then after that, we'll introduce the topics. It will start with them giving a con or pro speech on both sides. They'll ask some questions. You guys can ask some questions during each topic. One of you guys can come up and give a speech if you like. Then after that, they'll have a closing speech, and then we'll move on to the next topic. We should be out of here around 4 o'clock. It might be a little bit beforehand. But again, thank you all for coming. And I will now give it up to Michael Roach to announce our contenders.
In the right corner, we have U.S. veteran, teacher, and athletic director, with views that are so right they can't possibly... And in the left corner is English teacher and published journalist, the man who wrote articles that even the mainstream media said were too liberal. Give it up for Mr. Tom Clark. Let's have a civil debate, and good luck to both of you.
No one said I couldn't be rude. Civil. Did you hear the rude rule?
No, I think they're making it up.
Okay, so to start off, we'll start with, because I stole Mr. Clark's microphone, we'll start with Mr. Schwartz giving a short little speech about his political philosophies. And you have 2 minutes. You may begin.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Glad to see the interest in students in something that could potentially affect them. I think it's great. I'm a registered Republican, but that doesn't mean that everything I believe in goes straight to party ticket. I believe in what I believe. I'd like to thank Mrs. Levins and JSA for putting this event on. Staff, students for being here. I'd like to make it very clear that the thoughts and views that I express are mine. They don't represent anyone else. I am a Republican, however, I'm of the mind that our country comes first and foremost. For many years we've been the world police, caretaker, and guardian, which is fine, but in our country we have people that should be the priority. We have a great nation. Anyone that doesn't believe that should take a step outside this country and see what's out there. I believe in helping people, but we have people here at home that need help. We have homeless students right here at Scott. We have our veterans that are living in the street all over the country. I believe that we need to take care of ours before we start taking care of the rest of the world. That's all I have about that.
I want to second what Mr. Schwartz said in terms of welcoming you guys here and how proud and excited I am to see this many people want to come out and talk about the state of our nation. I am a liberal. And what that means is that I believe that people have a right to decide how to live their lives free of government and church. I believe in a broad, inclusive society, an expansive interpretation of the Bill of Rights, and a general belief that people should be free to follow the dictates of their conscience. I believe the interests of people outweigh the interests of corporations. I also believe that government has a central role to play in promoting the general welfare of the American people, a role assigned to government by the Constitution. For the past 8 years, the administration of Barack Obama sought to steer that liberal path. And today, the hands of the U.S. government is in the hands of conservatives. They control the White House. They control the House of Representatives and the Senate. We're seeing the conservative agenda. And the first things that they've chosen to do have all been things that have benefited corporations over people. In the coming months, the distinctions between liberal and conservatives will become more stark. The needs of people will be subsumed by the demands of greed. The leaders of conservative government will attempt to make you afraid of terrorists, of minorities, of science, of facts. It's the only tool they have. Do not be afraid. Liberals know we don't have to make America great again. It already is. Thank you.
Thank you both, and I'm sorry, Mr. Clark, I'm going to have to keep stealing your mic. Yeah, so we'll move into our first topic, which is NASA versus privatization, and I'll move it over to our moderators, Matt Adams and
Okay, this is to Mr. Clark first. Many argue on both sides of the aisle in Congress that NASA is no longer a needed program, saying it has served its use in the space race during the Cold War. What are your personal stances on the place of NASA in present-day America?
you will have 2 minutes. You may begin when ready.
I came of age in the 1960s. I am a child of that bulletin board to each Apollo flight, and we followed it. What that bulletin board spoke to me was of a country's dream. And I believe that a conservative Congress has cost us as a nation the capacity to dream. In a country where once no dream was too large, now we face a horizon where every dream is too much. Unless, of course, your dream is for the federal government to pay you. NASA's budget is 1/2 of 1% of the federal budget. That's $5 out of every 1,000, or half a penny out of every $100. The top 5 oil companies last year received tax breaks of $4 billion. That's despite having profits of $118 billion. Investing in NASA is investing in exploration. It's investing in dreams. It's investing in the way we as a people push our society forward. The space race of the 1960s brought vast technological developments to the United States. Working in partnership, corporations served both their country and their bottom lines. Leaving the work of space, leaving the work of exploration solely to corporations limits our dreams to bottom lines and spreadsheets. And I think our national pride demands more. I think there's a role for government, just as there's also a role for corporations. But the government works on behalf of the people, and space is open to all of us.
All right, thank you. Next, we will have Mr. Schwartz ask the same question, or answer the same question. Do you need to repeat it?
No, I'm good.
All right.
NASA is already partially financed in the private sector. Right now, NASA has a contract with the private sector in excess of $1.6 trillion. Why do we need 2 agencies to do that? I totally agree with Mr. Clark that I grew up in the same time period with the space race. I remember watching the first man walk on the moon, and I thought, wow, that's great. But we've grown since then, and I think it's time that we start looking at what is the best for this country. I don't believe that NASA should ever go away, but I think there's a way to combine the two. Federal government paying you, I agree. We've been looking at that for the last 8 years in federal handouts. I think they should go away. I agree that we also need to stop doing the handouts to private companies to do things that they can raise their own funds to. NASA could be used as an oversight, not only in restrictions, but in guidance and preparing regulations for the private sector. I think we do need to have some oversight in that. But why not let the private sector take over the bulk of the cost? We have other things we can spend that money on. I don't know that I want my tax dollars to continue to pay when the last 2 space shuttles that went up weren't even designed by NASA. They were designed by private companies. Private companies have taken on a much larger role, and they've done very well at it, without additional cost to the civilian sector or Joe public. Government projects have been seen as wasteful for many, many years. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing. It's just they have wasteful practices. This way they can be streamlined because public entities like to be profitable. That way they're not going to waste the funds. They're responsible for their own money. This, like I said, so my thoughts on that is NASA combining with the private sector, I think could be a very lucrative and good thing. How about that?
Thank you again. We will move on to the next question.
This question deals with a topic that Schwartz brought up in his answer. But in recent years, parts of the NASA program have already been privatized. Should programs like NASA still be government programs, or should we completely give it up to the private sector? Yeah, it's first directed towards you, Schwartz.
I think I addressed that, but I'll make sure that I state it again that I believe that NASA has a function. I believe that NASA should be there, should never go away. But in dealing with the funds that we see going out, I don't know why NASA could not take on more of a role of oversight for the private sector to make sure things are done safely and in the best interest of our country. So I think the combination of the two could be a very good process.
I think the role of NASA has always been one of oversight and planning. Corporations have always built the space capsules. Corporations have always been at the heart of the program in terms of supplying the equipment that NASA needed. But the program to go to the moon was a federal program. The goal of putting a man on the moon was a federal goal. Elon Musk is doing wonderful things in the space program, but his goal is not to further science. His goal is to make money, and that's what his job should be. He's responsible to his company. NASA is there to set an agenda. NASA is there to further our national goals and to set that dream that a country can reach for. I happen to believe that we can do a lot of things. We don't have to do just one thing. I think it's possible to solve homelessness and send a man to Mars. I think it's possible to create infrastructure in the United States and explore the space. It's about exploration, and the things that can do is to inspire the next generation. It's one thing to build a bridge and go, oh yeah, I want to be a civil engineer. It's another thing to see a man shoot for the stars and say, that science stuff looks pretty good to me.
All right, thank you very much. And then our next question is actually submitted from Eric Lanes for, who's it from? Does anybody want to ask any questions at all? Is there anybody that wants to come up and give a speech, either in favor of NASA or in favor of privatization? And you can also get involved with your teacher, if you'd like. If not, we'll have to move on to our next topic and it'll get really boring. So, just saying. Okay, we want you all to get up and try stating your mind. That's one of the points of this debate. So if you have anything at all you want to say, that's here, please. All right, I guess not. We'll move on to our next topic, which is Eric's question was already asked. What was it? Oh my gosh. Okay. It's on the all right. So we'll move on to our next topic, which is military funding, correct? And we will move it over to Matt Adams.
Okay, this is addressed to Mr. Clark first. Our country currently has the highest military budget for the military in the rest of the world, and it's more than the next 7 countries combined. Considering this, do you feel that the amount going towards military/defense spending is an overreaction from the U.S., or do you feel that the spending is completely justified? You have 2 minutes to speak.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. accounted for 36% of all military spending in the world in the past year. 36% of all military spending in the entire world. That percentage is about the equivalent of the next 8 countries combined. That's China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, United Kingdom, India, France, Japan, and Germany. All but 2 of those countries we would call our allies. So we kind of have to ask the question of who are we defending from what? And who are we defending against? There are, as Mr. Schwartz also alluded to earlier, there's many things we need to be talking about in this country, things that we need to be focused on. We have an infrastructure that has been rated by the Civil Engineers of America at a D+. We have a bridge across the Ohio River that is one of the most important bridges in the nation and is well beyond its warranty life and also carrying more traffic than it was designed to hold. As Cincinnatians who cross that bridge and Northern Kentuckians who cross that bridge, we should be concerned about that. And yet, the President, in his speech the other night, said that he wants to devote another $54 billion to military spending. I have trouble justifying that expense. I believe in a strong defense, but I don't believe that we need a strong defense at the expense of all of the other things needed in our country.
All right, thank you very much. The same question for Mr. Schwartz. Do you need to repeat it? Great.
Mr. Clark makes some great points, and you can't deny those. When we talk about our infrastructure in this country, it's old. It's been proven with some of the bridges that have failed that we need to fix them. But we also need to look at why are we spending that money? And what are we spending the money on? Talk about $54 billion. That's a lot of money. But if you've also noticed, they're decreasing the fat, they're cutting the budgets to other programs that have not been functional for years. Things that have been put in place by the Democratic regimes like Obama. They're doing away with some of those. And they're evening that up. So when we're talking about adding $54 billion to the budget to support the military, we're also taking away from some other programs that have not worked in a while. 36% of the world's spending, but we also bear our own share of the world's issues. I don't agree that we should be in some places, but we are. Defending our own interests, that's who we're defending. And I don't think we can put a price tag on whether that's worth it or not. When I served this country, I did it because I didn't want my kids to have to. So yeah, $54 billion, is it worth it? Absolutely, every day. Maybe we should cut some of that spending, the $7 trillion that we spend on the Middle East, fixing their infrastructure. And I think we're going to see that. Some of those programs that have been used for that have already started to go away. Maybe we should look at some of the spending that we're doing on arresting illegal aliens in this country, which is total millions and millions of dollars for the incarceration for the actions of some of the illegals. So there are many things we can cut, but the one place that we don't need to cut is our tag on this country's defense.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Next question.
5 months ago, Donald Trump called for the increase of defensive spending, citing statistics such as the U.S. having a smaller branches of military since the 40s, the time of World War II. Some have been startled by the president's plans, worried that he is hinting at World War III, while others praise the plans, citing the hostile climate of the world. Others have also praised the notion of increasing spending, but not to increase size, just the funding for better technology. Do you believe that an increase in defensive spending is necessary for today's world, or do you believe it is an overreaction? And this will be to Schwartz first.
Hostile climate. There is definitely a hostile climate in the world. If you've been outside this country and you've gone to some of these places and you've seen how they react to Americans, they're happy to take our money while they're looking at you with disgust and despair. Cuts have been made in programs that have not been successful or have ran overboard. We see that with the new stealth. I believe it's a fighter or maybe it's a bomber, I don't remember. But they've gone over and over and over and keep spending money, and there's been a stop put to that. I think we need new technology. We have a much smaller force than most of the countries in the world. However, with our technology that we do have, we don't need the larger force. We can do much more with far less because of the new toys that we've got. And that's simply put. We need those new technology items, and we need to keep developing them so we don't have to put more troops in harm's way.
It's an interesting question, is do we need more? We need to evolve our military to respond to the threats. As the world blows closer together, you're not going to see country versus country sorts of wars, because that's not going to be conducive to the global environment. What you're going to see are things like ISIS and these smaller threats that are not fought in conventional ways. You can't declare war on ISIS because and you can't carpet bomb ISIS because ISIS doesn't have a capital. They're cells and they're groups. So we need to be smarter about our military. But we spent $603 billion in defense spending last year. $603 billion. Frankly, I would like to see, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting keep the $10 million or $20 million that it receives, and maybe cut that out of the defense budget. I don't believe that defense is the be-all and the end-all. It supports a lot of jobs, yes, but it also, we can use that money more effectively by projecting American goodness and American values by building schools and building roads and not necessarily starting a war and dropping a bomb all the time.
All right. Are there any audience questions?
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm back. If there's not any questions, is there anybody that wants to come up and give a speech, either for Mr. Clark's case or for Mr. Schwartz's case? Or even your own case also. Yeah, that is true. If you have Nick Lowry, come on up. Is there anybody else to take one more? Tyree? Tyree, did you have your hand up?
Yes, he did.
All right. You can just give your own. Yeah. And we'll start with Nick Lowry, and you'll have 2 minutes to give whatever case you want to get. Here you go.
So first off, I would like to say that it's great that we can have two teachers, both well-respected and loved by our school, to come up here and debate on things that affect all of us. But one thing that I've seen on social media, gatherings for political parties, and even in Washington, that I feel like we really need to address is the willingness to compromise, to be friendly and realize that we're all United States citizens, and we all want what's best for our country. Something that I think a lot of people are forgetting in demonizing the opposing side. Just wanted to say that.
Tyree, you'll have 2 minutes to talk about military funding, or you can also talk about what I'm going to talk about. You can start whenever you're ready.
I actually walked in on Mr. Schwartz side. I don't agree with him, sorry. But, okay, so I think that the military defense budget is entirely too high. I do agree that we need a strong military, we need a strong central force to keep, to enforce all of our laws and stuff overseas. We need to protect ourselves. Without our defense budget, we wouldn't have done as well in any of the wars that we've been in. We wouldn't have done as well in Afghanistan smooth. But I think, I did research on a paper for Lang last year, and I found out that it would take less than 1% of the national budget entirely to end global poverty in less than 20 years. So the fact that I would rather take from the military defense budget, which holds over, in 2015 it held over 54% of our budget, I'd rather take from that rather than something like transportation, which only has 2%. So, granted, these government programs have a lot of money spent into them. Like 2% of the national budget is still $26.7 billion, and that is a lot of money. But for a lot of these, like if you look at a pie chart of the national budget, it just seems like they picked out like, oh, we have all the money that we need for defense. Let's just, spread the rest of it out evenly. Education, Social Security, and medical care all have 6% of the budget, which I just think that we can allocate at least a little bit of the defense budget towards other stuff, and it wouldn't lose that much.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sure.
I'm going to clarify that number just a little bit, Tyree, that the military budget is actually about 18% of the total federal budget. It is over 50% of the discretionary budget. Social Security and mandatory things like that take up about 2/3 of the budget. The discretionary budget is about 1/3, and of that, over half goes to the military.
All right. You two did a really awesome job. Is there anybody else who wants to come up and give a speech? Going once, going twice. Oh, well, we actually have a question from Michael Roche.
I was just wondering your guys' opinion. Do you think that America is held as one of the main powers of the world because of our high budget for the military?
I think at one time we probably were. I think there's been a lot of downsizing of the military, which is a normal reaction after one part of our military endeavors ends. When the troops were pulled out of Iraq a few years ago, I think we were looked at by a lot of the world's population as we were doing the wrong thing. So I don't know that our spending makes other countries look at us as a military power. I think it's actually because of our people that we have. I think it's actually because our soldiers are well trained, sailors and Marines. So I don't know that it's our budget. I think it's the determination of the American soldiers, sailors, and Marines that other countries are a little bit more deterred and really don't want to go up against us.
I think that's a really interesting question, and I agree with Mr. Schwartz in some aspects of that. I think that America is viewed with a duality of both respect and fear. I think that we want to project a deterrence to Russia and to China and to give them a moment to think before they do something stupid. But at the same time, I think that America is also viewed as a hope for a better world. And we violate that trust when we go on expeditions that seem to be designed to grab someone's oil. And when our president says that, well, we should have taken the oil, that gives the rest of the world pause about what are America's true intentions. We have been the world's policemen. That comes with the good and the bad, just as sometimes local policemen are viewed as both, a positive and a negative. So it's a role that the United States has to examine very carefully about when we do project military power, are we doing it in a way that is constructive to the view of America beyond our own borders, or are we doing it in a way that is going to bring those those concerns back into the forefront. The best advertisement for ISIS right now is America wants to take over the world. And sometimes we play into that narrative more than I am comfortable with.
All right, thank you very much. Topic, right? The Affordable Care Act, and I'll let Matt Adams introduce it.
Okay, this is going to go to Clark. Trump has called the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, a failed disaster, and his administration has claimed that, quote, they needed to save Americans from Obamacare. While Democrats praise the Obama step towards national health care system due to the amount of people now insured, what are your feelings on the ACA? Do you feel it is effective, and do you feel it is lawful?
I think the Affordable Care Act is a crowning achievement of the Obama administration. I understand the conservative argument against the ACA, and I think it is the defining issue that separates liberals from conservatives. The liberal philosophy is that there are things that people should be able to depend on, and one of those things is health care. The ability to take care of yourself and to help people buy insurance that will protect them. Conservative argument seems to be, I have mine, good luck getting yours. That is an awful message to send. In the 8 years since the ACA was passed, conservatives have held more than 50 symbolic votes to repeal the ACA. But not once have the Republicans proposed legislation to replace it. Donald Trump has been in office for a month. No plans have been offered. No legislation has been introduced. 8 years, but they have no plan because I believe they don't want to have a plan. The reason the GOP hates the ACA is it is financed with a tax on the top 1%, households that make more than $300 million. And when you repeal the ACA, those households will get a tax break of $7 million each. Think about that for a minute. That is how the richest 1% are being asked to give a little bit more to help people who have nothing or who have very little and cannot afford health care. That doesn't mean that health care suddenly becomes free for those people. You and I will pay that. But in terms of the tax break, if your family makes less than $200,000, you get nothing. 32 million people stand to lose health care if ACA is repealed. That is a ridiculous price.
All right, thank you very much. And the same question will be directed towards Mr. Schwartz. You have 2 minutes.
I agree with some of what Mr. Clark says. I don't know that it was a failed disaster in design. I think there are certain portions of the ACA that have not performed up to the standards that were proposed, and that happens a lot with government. That's just the way it is. However, the crowning achievement of Obama as being ACA, I don't know that I think that was his intention, was to do something and have a legacy. And I think that was what exactly he was doing this for, was for his own legacy. It didn't work out that way. Mr. Clark made a couple of things, comments about some things that liberals are looking at, providing things that should be inherent. Healthcare, absolutely. I don't think any child in this country should not have healthcare. But also, it's taking care of self, or getting that taken care of for them. That seems to be one of the mantras of liberals is, well, we're going to give it to them. No, they shouldn't be given it. I work for it. Mr. Clark works for his. And there's nothing wrong with working for things in this country. I think we're getting too far away from that. What happens, is this in keeping with the liberal mantra, is that, well, if you don't get your insurance, we're going to give you a fine. Now that's smart. We're going to find people that can't afford the insurance in the first place. I don't know. I don't agree with that. When it came out this year, it's a $695 fine, or 2.5% of the income. 2014, it was only a $95 fine, 1% of the income. And then they turned the IRS loose on you. How is that helping the people that are already having a problem helping themselves? I don't know. I think there are some good portions pushing the ACA, and I think that the plan that they're trying to roll out is taking the bad parts and keeping the good. I hope.
Yeah, okay, you have 1 minute though.
Bill, I think you know that people who are being fined are people who could afford a package, and that the people who cannot afford insurance are receiving subsidy. But you know that. But we also, the state requires me to carry auto insurance, and my auto insurance has to reach certain minimums. Why? Because it makes for safer roads, and it makes for a more productive society. Why should healthcare be any different? If I have to insure my car, why don't I have to insure me too? And the subsidies allow people who have trouble paying for it, help to pay for it. But everybody's paying for their insurance. Nobody's being given insurance, or very, very few people. And if they do, it's because they meet the qualifications for Medicare.
Thank you very much. Do you want to do it?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You have a 1 minute rebuttal, and then we'll go on to the next question.
Okay, one thing, car insurance, that's a luxury. I don't have to have a car. I don't have to drive. I could walk to work. Healthcare should not be a luxury or considered a luxury. I think everybody should have healthcare. But I think there's other ways of going about doing it. I disagree with giving any free public assistance unless there are circumstances that do meet criteria. If there's somebody who's able to work, well, let's get them out there and let's put them to work. There's ditches that need cleaned, there's trash that needs picked up, and then help them take care of their insurance. I have no problem with that.
Pay them a wage.
Pay them a wage. There we go. I have no problem with that. But get off your butt and work. No handouts.
All right.
And that's all.
All right. Thank you both very much.
So this question goes further into what you both touched on. Do you believe that we should have a universal healthcare system, or should we keep it as it is, or make minor changes to what we currently have? And this will go to Schwartz first.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is going to sound a little weird. I think there are ways that we could fix probably the problems that we have. We could go to something different. There are models around the world that are being very effective today. Maybe it needs to be studied a little bit more. I don't know. But universal health care, I think there should be a system out there. That's why I'm not getting paid the big bucks to be president. I don't have all the answers to that. I wish I did. Do I agree everybody should have the opportunity for health care? Absolutely, especially our children. After you turn 18, you get your butts out there and work. And that's all I have to say about that.
Universal health care sounds like a panacea, but I don't know that it is. In some countries that have universal health care, you run into issues with waiting times and things like that. I think that there is a basic level of care maybe that should be covered by a universal health program, but then the more esoteric and Cadillac sorts of things should be open to insurance plans and things like that. Frankly, the Affordable Care Act was created by a conservative think tank as a way to not go to universal health care, which is a government-run operation. The Affordable Care Act tried to keep private insurance companies in the game so that those companies weren't dealt out. Trying to have this sort of public-private cooperation has been where some of the problems with the ACA came in. So universal health care it's a proposition that would cause a lot of issues and a lot of concerns in the United States because we are used to going our own way as individual citizens. But I think that there may be ways that can be used in combination with other things in order to form a safety net so that everyone has a basic level of health care.
Okay, I guess this will go to Mr. Clark first. Trump has called for a multitude of actions against the ACA, varying from repealing the act altogether, as well as most recently simple revisions. Some argue that the elimination of the ACA would severely limit those with lower socioeconomic status to receive treatments for life-threatening illnesses, as well as treatments for mental illnesses. Do you feel that there should there should there should be some action to limit the ACA, and if so, what actions? Should any parts of the ACA be preserved? Do you feel that the pushback against repealing the act is justified?
I'll be very clear. I think the ACA should be preserved and improved, not repealed in any way, shape, or form. I'll tell you a story. My niece went to work in New York City, and she worked at jobs that did not pay much more than minimum wage. She had Crohn's disease, which is a disease of the intestines, and because she did not have health insurance through her employer, was not able to afford private health insurance. If you've never priced it, it's outrageously expensive. And her Crohn's disease went untreated. When she finally did get medical coverage, she had a large, like 1/3 of her small intestines removed because her disease had gone untreated. That sounds like, oh, well, she should have just gotten it treated. If you don't have money to pay a doctor, you don't have money to pay a doctor. Doctors don't work for free. Hospitals don't work for free. So for me, the ACA is a very personal thing. It's a very real thing. It's not some hypothetical person. It's my niece who could have stayed healthy and kept, and avoided a very lengthy and dangerous surgery that is going to be something that she deals with the rest of her life, simply because at the time she was working 40 hours a week and doing all of those things, but simply could not afford what healthcare costs in the United States today. Healthcare is more expensive in the United States than anywhere else in the world. Why? Because they can.
All right, same question for Mr. Schwartz.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I don't believe that they should repeal the ACA. The reason why I'm saying that, though, is because Obama took so much time preparing it that if they pulled it now, it would cause more problems than it would help. Some of the things that I think should be kept that are in the ACA. One is you should be able to choose your own doctor. Do away with the fines. If you're not able to get the insurance, why should you fine them? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Keeping your pre-existing condition clause. I think there's so many different things out there now that if you have, almost everybody would have some kind of pre-existing condition. Affordable prescriptions for seniors. Also, providing tax credits to companies that provide coverage for employees. I think that that's a good way to start. I think there's also a lot of things in that ACA, and I don't know of anybody, to include all the people that are representatives, have ever sat down and read it. I doubt Obama's even read it. If anybody's ever seen it, it's probably over 16 inches thick. He's probably had pages and everybody read it. I just think that there's a lot in there that can do some good, but I think there's a lot in there that needs to be re-looked at. So as far as repealing it, no.
All right, thank you.
This last question was submitted by a student who wished to remain anonymous. We later revised it so it would be applicable to both participants, and it's kind of a rapid question for your final thoughts on the ACA. Those in favor of the Affordable Care Act argue that it has saved thousands of American lives that would have otherwise died or gone into debt because of medical expenses. Current legislation being considered offers worse coverage than the ACA and costs much more. Do you think the Trump administration should focus on dismantling the ACA and creating a new system, or revising the ACA? And we'll go to Schwartz.
I think I already kind of covered that. I don't think by repealing it, I think we're going to cause more problems than we would help. But I do think there's some revisions that could and should be made. Like I said, I named a few of the parts of it that I think are very good. They definitely should be kept. And like I said, somebody else gets paid a lot more money than I do to make those big decisions.
Bill raises an excellent point about the people who are being fined for not having insurance. The problem is that in order to create a large enough pool of people buying insurance, you have to require people to buy insurance. It's the people who are healthy paying for insurance that make it possible for insurance companies to pay for the people who have claims, just as it is with home insurance, just as it is with car insurance. But people who are healthy say, well, I don't need insurance, which is true until you get hit by a bus. Okay? And that's when that is the kind of thing that happens, and then suddenly those people are in hospital, and the hospital is paying for their costs, which means that then I pay for their costs as well because I do have insurance. The ACA is not a perfect system. Nobody has ever said it's a perfect system. But it has been successful and will continue to be successful. And we need to get serious about this discussion and stop it being a political thing of, oh, you're taking money from me, or oh, you're making me do this, or oh, there's going to be death panels, and that sort of scare tactics. Healthcare is a serious business. One of the things we need to do is to repeal the law that was passed that says that the American government can't negotiate with drug companies for cheaper drug prices. That was a law that was passed because drug companies didn't want to negotiate. So if we stop playing politics and start playing statesmanship and start playing how do we take care of the American public, that can lead us in a better direction.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody that has any question that they want to direct towards the teachers? If not, we'll go into any speeches that any of you want to give. Is there anybody out there that wants to come up and give a speech in favor of Mr. Clark or Mr. Schwartz, or your own stance? Anybody?
Did you say you're taking questions?
Yeah, we're taking questions. Would you
Okay,
like a
I have
question?
a question for Mr. Clark.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Clark, in listening to you reference the Affordable Care Act, and you were talking about the fact that you had car insurance, why shouldn't you have health insurance? And I'm thinking about the subsidies the government gives to people who can't afford. So what occurred to me when I was listening to you was, if you think that everyone in America needs to have affordable health care, and the government needs to subsidize that if they can't provide it for themselves, then I'm wondering why our government doesn't provide a home for every American. Shouldn't we provide homes for people in America? What would this health care give them when they're sleeping on the streets? And I mean, and you know as well, by the millions of homeless in America. And I wonder what your thoughts were on that.
That's an interesting question, and as a liberal, I would ask the same question: is why can't we guarantee a home for every person? And don't we have a social obligation to do that? I'm going to fight this battle first before I move on to that one, but it's a question that I believe as a nation we have to ask ourselves. And that question is, how comfortable are we with telling someone, sorry, you are what you are, you make what you make, you can buy what you can, and if you can't afford a home, if you can't afford a doctor, if you can't afford health care, that's just too bad. My politics and my faith and my conscience don't allow me to say that to someone. I believe that there must be programs out there that can help people find a home. I believe that there are programs out there that are helping people find a home. But as a society, we have to decide if we're going to put our investment into people, or we're going to put our investment into corporations and guns and other things. As a liberal, I would say people. Not everybody shares that point of view.
All right, thank you very much. Answer two if you want, but okay, there you go.
How to look at this. This country, from its inception, throughout history, has taught people to grab their bootstraps and pull themselves up. I think we've gotten way too far away from that, from holding people accountable and just being too willing to Oh, here you go, buddy. It's okay. You'll get it next time. And I'm not saying we shouldn't give people more than one chance. By far, I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. First person. I think that I look at it, things that I've done because I wanted to do them. There's a lot of programs out there to help people out. So where do we draw the line? Do we look at it and say, well, you know, I'm sorry you're sleeping in the street. Let's give you a house and let's see how long that takes. What are you going to do from there? What's next? Then now, do we pay for your college? What are we going to pay for? When do we stop that and hold people accountable in this country? I'm not a demon. I believe in helping people. I mean, I do. I help people a lot. I volunteer at a lot of different places. But when do we need to hold people accountable? And I think that's the bigger question. When do we get to hold people accountable and stop? Here you go. Have this.
When do we?
Exactly.
So if there's anybody that has any more questions, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll call you. Anybody?
Last chance.
Yeah. All
Can I
right.
have another question?
I mean, go ahead. That's fine. Yeah.
One more question?
Yeah, sure. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. And I'm very interested in the two diverging viewpoints on it. I was listening to the radio the other night, some commentary about refugees, and I don't know if affordable care is the focus here, but I hope you'll answer this question about refugees. And the gentleman from one of the refugee organizations that works with foreign countries to coordinate the movement of refugees in, get them settled, get them in a safe place here in America, and you know what I'm saying here. And they were talking about the fact of what these refugees get when they come into our country. You bring a Syrian refugee family in, you're providing housing. The government, now I'm pretty sure, I double checked, did I hear this correctly? The United States government is providing $1,100 a month per either refugee or refugee family. And what I wanted to know, and then the newscaster was saying, hey, if you are a religious or a social organization, isn't that something your organization should be paying? Why should taxpayers be paying that? But my question was this. If you're giving them $1,100, what about Americans who are, again, homeless? Why aren't we taking our own American refugees off the streets, who are refugees of whatever kind of war, or whatever kind of trouble, or mental illness, or whatever's been going on in their life? Why aren't we taking care of our own people first? $1,100 a month, a home, training for a job, that's a lot to give to a person from a foreign country. I want to help too, you know that. What's your answer to that?
Gosh, I mean, that's a lot to look at. I happen to agree somewhat because we do have a lot of homeless in this country. I don't agree with saying that people from another country can't come to the United States. However, this is nothing new, setting limits of how many people from certain places are allowed in our country. We've been doing that since this country's been here. Obama himself, he put the same restrictions on the same countries that Trump did. And Trump's a bigot and a derelict and everything underneath the sun because he tried to put the same restrictions out. So I believe America first. I don't have a problem paying taxes as long as I can see where they're going to, and if it's helping other Americans out, well, daggone, shouldn't we help our own first? I don't believe in paying for all these other countries, building schools and churches in other countries when we have needs right here. I just think we should take care of our own first, and then if we've got room, by all means, this country was found on immigration. I don't have a problem with immigration at all, as long as it's done legally and they can support themselves. I think that's great.
I would argue with the premise of the question that somehow that bringing in a Syrian refugee or bringing in 1,000 Syrian refugees or bringing in 11,000 Syrian refugees or 25,000 Syrian refugees means I can't help the homeless in America too. It's a big nation, we've got lots of room, we can help everyone if we make that our priority. The problems of homelessness are also the problems of mental illness, the problems of a lack of living wage, the problems of people being asked to do things that at low wages. Homelessness is also an issue of some people just choosing to live outside the societies, although that's just a teeny tiny sliver of it. I don't mean to say anything else by that. It bothers me that we only talk about the homeless when we want to score points about talking about somebody from some other place. It seems to me that we don't want to bring in Syrian refugees because, well, they're Syrian, and they're Muslim, and they're not like us. And that's why that this topic comes up. If they're being given a government grant, I would assume that grant has a cutoff limit. But our own people also receive grants through Medicaid and Medicare and other programs such as unemployment. We have a big nation, and we have a big nation that works hard. And America is a great country, and we do lots of things for lots of people. And one of the things that we've always been is a place of refuge for people in need. People who are leaving Syria are leaving their homes, not because they want to, but probably because their home doesn't exist anymore. It's been bombed. It's been destroyed. It's been taken from them. And so I think we have an obligation, as does the rest of the world, to open our arms.
Very much. We do not have time to have any more questions. If there is anybody who wants to give up and give a speech, though, we would obviously love to welcome that. Anybody at all? Going once, going twice. All right. We'll go on to closing statements now. And seeing as did Mr. Schwartz start? Mr. Schwartz started, did you? Okay. Seeing as he started, we'll have Mr. Clark start. You will have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
Last year when we first did one of these, the closing statement I gave was not about politics, but about you. And I want to kind of return to that as well. The future is not you. You are the present. Every person in this room within probably the next presidential election will be voting. The issues that we've talked about aren't going to go away in 4 years. The issues that we've talked about aren't going to go away in 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 16 years. These are going to be the issues that define your country. One of the things that I hear a lot, and I'm sure that Mr. Schwartz hears also, is, well, today's young kids, how are they going to handle our nation in the future? And I'm entirely confident on that question. I have absolutely no problem in entrusting you guys to keep this country running while I'm sitting on a beach somewhere. You are the future. And you are the ones who are going to make policy. The next president, not the next president, but 2 or 3 down the road, the next president of the United States may be sitting in this room. That does not scare me. That gives me great hope. Be involved. Make your voice heard. Call a congressman. If you haven't seen it right now, there's a video on YouTube or on Facebook of an 11-year-old asking a congressman a question that left the congressman speechless. So be bold. Be political. But also be an American first. We are, Mr. Schwartz and I are on we're at opposite tables, but we are Americans first and foremost. I honor his service to our country. I honor his service as a teacher. We are who we are, and we are not divided by our politics, but we are united by them.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clark. And now, Mr. Schwartz, you may begin 2 minutes.
Yeah, Mr. Clark and I, we do this. We have very different opinions on a lot of things, which is fine. It's okay to have a different opinion. As I said at the very beginning of this, I'm registered as a Republican, but you know what? That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that I can't have an opinion outside of what the Republican Party believes. There's a lot I don't agree with. It just happens that I disagree more with the Democratic Party. But I can't say and echo enough that I'm so happy that all of you are setting out here, because more people do need to get involved. You need to be educated. And that doesn't mean sitting here listening to two old guys banter back and forth. That means go online and read something. Believe about a quarter of what you read online. Watch the news. Try not to watch one of the biased ones like Fox. But keep yourself informed. And that's the best thing that you can do. When you get the opportunity to vote, do it. Vote your conscience. Vote what you believe is right. Stand up for what you believe in, your morals, your values, and ask your parents. Talk to them. Even if you disagree with them, talk to them. Because through disagreement, we can find common bonds. There's a lot of bad out there in the world. A lot. We've got it pretty good right here in this country, even though sometimes we may not think so. And a lot of the issues that we talk today is just, it's a tip of the iceberg, about that much. There are so many more issues out there that we need to address. And I agree with Mr. Clark when he said, you all are going to be the ones that are going to be addressing it. Your generation. You're going to have a hard time because there's a lot of underlying issues that still need to be figured out. So good luck, good riddance, and I'm going to be on the beach with Mr. Clark.
Thank you both very much. We would like if you two shake hands. But how about all of you give another round of applause for our two